start with just a couple updates, medical updates. Entering camp, Laurent Brossoit underwent off-season hip surgery, so he's going to be out long term. Jack Pridham's got it's a small little infection he's dealing with, so we hope to see him back on the ice in the coming days. AJ Spellacy had a shoulder injury during rookie camp, or rookie tournament, I should say. Should be back in about 7 to 10 days. And then Ty Henry, who took a fall during our pre-rookie tournament, he's going to be undergoing knee surgery soon, and update the timeline when we have a better idea. So that's all I got.
Just how tough has this been for Laurent? You know, he came here 2 years ago and told us, and you guys too.
Yeah.
You know, to see this guy just unable to, to stay healthy and everything.
Yeah, it's been really tough, and I think the thing that's really difficult outside of the hockey part is he's a great guy. He's a hardworking pro, really proud hockey player, and so it's really tough to see. It's really unfortunate. It's not what anyone envisioned, but I think when we kind of like watch what he's doing, the work he's putting in to do everything he can to get back on the ice, you can't ask any more from an athlete and from a person you bring into the organization, and he does everything he needs to do to keep this going in the right direction. He just things just keep popping up, and it's just unfortunate, but we're there to fully support him and do everything we can to get him back on the ice and playing again.
When you say long term, are you talking at least a few months? At least
Probably,
6 months?
yeah. Yeah, I don't have the exact time because we're gonna kind of see how he does, but yeah, month to month.
Is this like career-threatening stuff? The amount of things that he's going through. I mean, is he expecting to play in the NHL again?
I think he's definitely expecting to play again. Yeah, and that's when you're attacking rehab, with the the intensity and the intent that he is, you're planning to play again, and we plan to get him there too.
How was the Wyatt Kaiser contract negotiations done to the last minute?
Yeah, got it done and got a young player back on the ice, not missing any time, and so happy to have Wyatt under contract. I think he's going to be a big part of our team this year, and looking forward to just him continue to establish himself in the NHL and grow his game.
What was your thought process behind that, Spencer? How you feeling?
We traded for Spencer for a reason, and he was a big part of a very big deal for us. Part of that is because we believe in his potential to be a top flight starter in this league, and I think getting him under contract for the next couple of years gives him and us some runway to kind of further establish ourselves, put him in a position to be the number one guy, and give him some runway in that role, and we can kind of make sure we revisit things in a couple of years and make sure he's here for a really long time.
Could Spellacy end up playing in Rockford this year, or is he locked into Windsor?
He's NHL or junior. Okay. Yeah, there's no rule change this year in terms of
the 19-year-old.
Yeah, no, that's not available to teams this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Where you're at in the rebuild, what does success look like for you this year? What are you watching for?
Yeah, I think we're watching for the continued development and growth of our young players, but now with that impacting the NHL roster. I think we've had some young players playing outside of the NHL the last couple of years. We saw, at the end of last year, we saw a little peak of it, but my expectation is that we will see that on a much more consistent basis, and it's our belief that that quality coming up into the NHL and that youth is going to start propelling us forward. And it's there's an element of growth involved in this, but we believe that we will see a step forward this year, both in quality of play and then hopefully in point total as well.
Last year you were talking about it was time to start taking a step in the standings. It feels like that urgency might have died down a little bit because the young guys are getting here and they're showing all these flashes. Are you more patient this year than maybe you were even at this time last year?
Well, I think the composition of our team is just so different from last year. Honestly, my expectation was that we would have performed better than we did, especially out of the gate last year. We had a veteran-laden team. We were one of the more veteran teams in the NHL, which was by design, which led us to believe that we would be a little bit further ahead in last year's standings than we were. And we made mid-season changes because of the results, but that veteran-laden team didn't necessarily translate to where we are organizationally. Now that we've seen this influx of young talent at the end of the season and coming in, there will be a patience factor with young players in the NHL, but there's also an excitement factor and a future impact that we should see throughout this season, or for some players that will be here for a very, very long time, where some of the players that started the season last year and are no longer here, they were they served a valuable purpose, but maybe not part of the overall solution here.
You still have a lot of veterans up front. I mean, do you worry about, almost all of them are in the last year of their contract, but do you worry about them blocking guys that might be ready to, take that next step?
I don't think so. No, I think there's a lot of opportunity for the young guys, and you still have to have veterans in this league, and you still have to have guys that are established and know the grind and know how to lead the way for some of these young players. And again, there's no rush to have every single young player that's in pro play in the NHL. There are going to be a lot of availability and a lot of spots open to them to fight amongst each other for. And again, if there's an opportunity or there's a situation where a young player is outperforming a veteran, then that should merit a young player playing up the lineup. But they've got to earn that, and they've got to establish that over a course of time too. It's not you don't a career isn't made in a weekend or a preseason, and so we'll give them that runway. But the expectation is that we will see a lot more young players, and throughout the year, hopefully they establish themselves as impact players in the NHL.
How did the Grizzly PTO come about?
Matt's a really good veteran in this league. Had a nice year last year. We're pretty young on the back end, and so it was some additional competition and for our young players, and an opportunity for Matt to take a run at either making our team, and if it doesn't work out with our team, then it's a showcase for the rest of the league. And so, but first and foremost, he's trying out to make the Blackhawks, and we've gotten some really good reports on him as a person as well. Great character, great pro. He's had some experience with some of our coaching staff, as well as been a teammate with some of our players, and so lots of info there. And then meeting him, you can see why they've spoken so highly. And so again, just creating competition, raise the level of camp, and I think it'll be good for everyone.
What were your observations from rookie camp last week?
Yeah, it was good. I think it's try not to read too much into those things, because as of today or tomorrow, it's probably going to be an obsolete evaluation. But I thought some of the guys that played pro at the end of last year showed quite well, and so that's what you want to see. And then it was nice to get a look at some of the new draft picks and see where they're at, and just kind of better understand their game firsthand. And so I thought it was a success from that standpoint.
I know it's extremely early. Has Jeff been able to start putting his stamp on the organization?
Well, I think just having having him around, and even just setting things up for what's to come. I don't necessarily know if he's been able to put his stamp on, because you haven't been hands-on with the players, but even just the his opening meeting with the team at the other night at training camp opener was extremely impressive. I think the players got a peek into how detailed and how specific and how high he's setting expectations and the standards here. And so I think that was a great first step. Now they're going to do it on the ice, and we'll see how the next couple days and weeks go. But I have no doubt that he's going to make a very, very strong and positive impact with the organization.
Did you have any very early takeaways from what you've seen today so far?
Not really. looked hard. I did like, he was quite vocal early on, and so I think that was good. I think it's just a practice. I'm not going to make player evaluations on it, but I think just the tone that Blash was setting and the expectations. You can see the standards there, and something's not right, stop, correct, little skate, get back at it, and so it was nice to see.
Is there anything specific that you want to see from this camp that you maybe haven't seen in previous games?
I think it's hard to say. Every coach has their own style and expectation. I think Jeff's camp is going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenging one, which I think it sets the tone for the rest of the season. So I'm excited to see that.
How does this organization view Lucas Reichel right now? Like, where is he in the hierarchy?
I think it's a little bit of a prove it camp for Lucas. It's been an up and down couple of years for him, but we still see Lucas as an extremely talented, high upside player that has just as good a shot as anyone as being breaking camp with this team. But he's got to earn it just like everyone else. And he's got to find that niche. Like where are you going to find yourself? Where are you going to line up in the roster? And that's up to him to perform in camp, and then coaches to deliver feedback and have that give and take to make sure that he's got all the information necessary to make this team. And it's honestly it's not that different from any other player, but he has some history here that has had some highs and some lows, and so hopefully with the new coaching staff and new year, it's a fresh start for him to reestablish himself.
We know what Connor said what he wanted to work on in the off-season, speed and burst. Is it too early for you to get a sense of any improvements he made in that, or either visually or through discussion with him?
I think visually you can see there's a little extra pop there in the legs. Again, it's early, right? And a lot of the work that's done in the off season is done to sustain that level that you come into camp with. And so, but early indications, I think he looks great. I think he looks really athletic, lots of pop in his legs, and I think that's great for him. It's great for us, and I know he put a lot of work in and changed some things in the off season, and early indications off the ice, and then again, don't want to make too many reading too much of a quick session, but I think he looks fantastic.
You got a few deals done this offseason for future, but I think a lot of eyes are on what Connor is going to do. Do you have a sense of whether you guys continue to negotiate during the season, or have to, something he wants to wait until after the year to finalize?
Yeah, it's nothing we're actively working on right now, but I think Connor's mentioned it. I'll say it. I have zero concern about where that's headed. He wants to be here for a long time. We want him here for a long time, and we're going to make that happen.
In regards to the young players in camp, what are some of the things you and your staff are kind of looking for to have one of these guys separate themselves from the rest and prove they belong to stay here?
It's a good question. I think there's probably a consistency that's going to be required for a young player to separate themselves from the group. Again, we have a lot of young players, and they're not all going to play up to start. But there's a consistency that's required to performing in this league and excelling in this league, and so you want to see them get off to a good start in camp and continue that through. But I think there's going to be a lot of evaluation throughout. You don't want to take too much into account early on, and as guys get their feet under them. But I think those preseason games and the latter part of camp will be very important as we push into actually getting down to numbers and building out this roster for the season. I think it's going to be that consistency, as we go once guys get their feet under them.
In Kevin Korchinski's third-year pro, where do you kind of see him, and where are you hoping that he goes this season?
Yeah, I think Kevin took a really nice step, I think, in the second half last year. I thought he had a nice playoffs for Rockford as well, and I'd like to see him continue that. Again, he's got an opportunity to make this team, but he's still very young, and if he doesn't, then Rockford's a great option. He's still very young. We've known the name, and he's been on the scene. He started early, but there's still a growth for all young players to undergo to make sure they stick and are impact players in the NHL. And I think something with a player like Kevin, confidence and that willingness to go out and make plays is going to be a very big part of his success in pro hockey and in the NHL. And so we want to make sure that that's there. We want to make sure that he's doing everything he can to play to his strengths. and so he's still very much in the developmental stage of his career, and so if he shows that he's ready for the NHL, then he'll be here. If there's some things that we feel he needs to work on and continue to grow and play really big minutes and in every situation, then Rockford's available to us, and that's, again, it's not a step back. We go back and look at all the players that have established themselves. Duncan Keith's going to go in the Hall of Fame this fall, and he wasn't a full-time NHLer until he was 22, and it's one of the best defensemen we've seen in the last couple decades. It's a different world now than when Duncan broke in, and expectations are different. But we can't lose sight of these are still young hockey players. We don't want to rush them. We want them to be the best players they can be, and luckily we've got numbers. So if it's Kevin or any other player that ends up in Rockford or in the NHL, it's going to be a situation that's best for their development long term.
How do you view the differences between junior and college from a development perspective? It seems like the last few years you've had college guys come in and be fairly, not ready-made, but maybe closer to being pro-ready. How do you view the differences between them?
I would attribute that perhaps more to the age of the players coming out of college than junior. But there are certainly differences and advantages to each one. There's a bit of a heavier playing schedule and more games in junior. There's more practice time and off-ice workout opportunity in perhaps in college, and you're playing against older, stronger players, which there's a uniqueness to playing against guys that are closer to being men. And so but we don't prefer one or the other. Every case is situational, and a lot of times, most of the time, we take the lead of the player. Where do you think your development is best served? The last thing we want is to say, player A, you're going to go here because we think that's best. They're not fully invested. It doesn't really go great, and then all of a sudden, it's on us. And not to, avoid blame in a situation, but we want them to have skin in the game. It's their career, it's their development, and a lot of times there isn't a clear best path. And so if they feel college is best for them, we support that. If they feel that junior is the best for them, we support that. Of course, we're an input into that, but we don't push one way or the other. There's just benefits to both.